Mora conducts physician-led support groups, helping people live healthier, happier lives, free from chronic diseases like diabetes, hypertension, and obesity. And on our podcast, Health and Mora with Dr. Lori Marbus, we bring to you nutrition and lifestyle medicine experts and extraordinary guests to empower and inspire you with their knowledge and stories of plant-based lifestyle so that you can be your healthiest self.
So welcome to the podcast. And today I have a really excellent guest, guys. You're going to love this. And it's Javant, and he is Healthy Vegan Eating on Instagram. And I've been following him for a bit, and I'm just so fascinated. One thing, your voice is like draws you in. It's like I have to listen to this. Like I have to be somewhere I could turn on the sound. And so welcome to the show.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Well, first of all, I'd love to get started with your journey into plant-based eating. How did this all come about?
Well, it's a long story because it kind of, took place over a number of years. And I always tell people when they ask me how I got into eating healthy or became vegan, I got in it what I consider to be the worst way possible. And that is I had a health scare, you know, and so many of us know that we should eat better and exercise and do these kind of things, and we make New Year's resolutions, but fall off a lot. And I was that person. And so over time, I put on a lot of weight in my, late 20s, early 30s. And then I became pre-diabetic, pre-hypertensive. Yeah, and then I had a really scary health scare, and some tests were being run. So it was at that point that I said, "Wow, I'm mortal, man, and I got to figure out what to do here because I was afraid, honestly." And so I just started doing some research about health and how to get healthy and how to, reverse disease and this kind of thing. And it was then that I was exposed to doctors and different people saying, "Hey, I've reversed my type 2 diabetes. I've cleared my atherosclerosis. I've done all these things by switching my diet to a plant-based diet." And so I was intrigued, and I just kept researching, kept reading, and started changing my diet. I started juicing at first and getting rid of some things, and so it was very progressive for me over a long period of time that I became, I got to the point where I am now.
Well, it certainly would never guess that you had any health issues. You look glowing and healthy and just
Thank you.
wonderful. So over the course of time, when would you say, how long have you been fully plant-based then?
Um, I would say see, it's difficult because again, it was very progressive for me. So I gave up meat a long time ago.
Okay.
I gave up meat a long time ago, but I still ate fish because a lot of the research I was doing, I was feeling like fish was necessary for the omega 3s and just certain nutrients and things that I felt if I let fish go, I want the iodine and just different things, I was a little concerned.
Sure.
And so I was on again and off again pescatarian, but I would say that fully plant-based, no meat, maybe 2 or 3 years that it's been
Okay.
that.
Great.
Um, but a long time with mostly plant-based and just a little bit of fish. Yeah.
Sure, absolutely. And so when did you really notice that your health situation improved? Like how did you notice? Like what was the first things you started noticing in your own body and your experience? And you're like, wow,
hmm
I'm really onto something.
hmm hmm Well, I think it was the weight. The first thing was the
Mm,
weight because again, I was about 90 pounds heavier than I am now, and that
wow.
that weight started to come off, right? And even people were saying, "You're losing weight, aren't you?" In the beginning, I was like, "Yeah, yeah, I am." And so that was the first thing. And then with the weight loss, I started to feel more energy and more energetic. And so those are the first things. The first signs was just the weight loss and just having more energy. Is what I
Wow.
noticed.
That's fantastic. So, and then with the energy, you're busy on Instagram and I know that takes a lot of intensity. So when did that start? When did you have the first inclination to start sharing your skill set with others and your knowledge?
Yeah, that was it's kind of ironic that I'm doing social media because I was the guy that was the last one to get a cell phone. And then I held on to the flip phone for longer than everybody else. Everybody's, when are you gonna get a real phone? And so I had never done TikTok or Instagram. I had a Facebook account, wasn't active on it, but what happened is that I thought to myself when I made the change and I lost the weight and I felt good and I was, becoming muscular and just feeling great, people would ask me, well, what did you do? And I would talk about it. Then they'd ask me more questions. And whenever I would talk about nutrition, I would see people reacting in a way like, wow, because I was really passionate about it, even not knowing. And after we talked, they go, man, you ought to teach somebody or coach or do
Mm,
something with this, man. Like you're really, passionate about this. And I like what you're saying.
mm,
And so I started thinking about that. And then some people say, well, you ought to go on social media. And I was like, no, I don't have any credentials. I'm going to go back to school. And so that's
mm.
one of the reasons that I'm thrilled to talk to you because my dream job was, you know what? I'm going to go to school, go to college, and I'm going to become a plant-based dietitian or doctor, right?
Awesome.
Or a
Yeah.
PA. I was thinking
Right.
a PA or a dietitian, plant-based.
Sure.
And so I went back to college for about a year and a half. But I really had a problem when I took my nutrition course. Some of the things that they were promoting and some things
Oh
they were
yeah.
putting out there, I was like, I can't authenticate. This isn't genuine to me, to how I feel about things. So I nixed that.
Mm,
And then I kept thinking, social media, you ought to try social media, you ought to try. I was like, nah. And then finally I said, you know what? Okay, I'm going to give it a try. And I was really deliberate about it, really deliberate.
mm,
So before I even launched on Instagram, I made a lot of videos, made a lot of little
mm.
cooking videos.
Okay.
And I said, I'm going to be prepared. And if I launch and it goes well, I'm going to have a lot of videos to put out there. And so I actually started posting on Instagram in June. June 21st was my first post. So it's only been a little bit over 6 months. Um,
Wow.
yeah,
Really?
yeah,
Wow.
yeah, I know. Wow is right. Wow is right because I was like, I hope this works, and maybe I'll have a few hundred followers, maybe a couple thousand by the end of the year. Um, and I'm got over a quarter million followers
That's
already,
amazing.
um, which was a good thing. The only drawback is every single day, dozens of people, literally dozens of people ask me, when are you going to do a cookbook? When are you going to do a cookbook? You know?
Right?
I had no idea going in that it was going to be necessary to have a cookbook. So that went the furthest thing from my mind. And so
Mm.
now I'm kind of trying to, think about that and get started on planning a cookbook. Yeah.
Well, it'll be an instant bestseller. You have a ready and literally hungry audience for your stuff that you're doing. It's phenomenal.
Exactly.
Well, the way you present it, and it's just I don't know, man. It's pretty sweet. I love watching your videos. Like I just like scroll, like go down into the flow of watching Javant present. And yeah, so let's talk about what you do, right? So what are you doing on your Instagram? Like tell us, because those maybe who aren't familiar with your brand and your channel, love to talk about like what would you like to see it like? Where are you interested? What do you really enjoy about it? Like tell us about that.
Well, I mean, really connecting,
Mm,
So my thing that inspired me to do Instagram is that when I was lost, so to speak, health
mm,
wise, and I knew I wanted to be healthy, but I didn't know what that meant. What do I do and how do I do it? I
mm,
didn't have a resource like the one that I'm trying to create where I could go there and say, hey, this is what you do, this is how you do it, but not only this is how you make it. Um,
mm,
so my whole goal and my whole intention is just to create a page where people who want to make a change,
mm,
and eat healthier, um, I can help facilitate that with my site. And so it's a vegan page, but I welcome all. If I have a lot of people that say, "Hey, I'm not vegan, but I like these recipes and I like
mhm,
this," and that's fine with me. But it's a vegan site. But I took it a little further. I make all my food with no oil, no wheat, no refined sugar, and no rice, and very, very little processed ingredients. I don't do a lot of things out of cans or bags, or here and there I do, but not a lot. It's not the only way to eat healthy vegan. I call it healthy vegan, but I don't want people to think that I'm saying, hey, this is healthy vegan, eat this and only this. If you're not eating
mm,
this way, you're not eating healthy vegan. It's
mm,
a title I put on it, but there are a lot of ways to eat healthy vegan, and you can include oil and those kind of things. But my intention again is just to create a page where people can come, and if you're interested in eating a vegan diet, you can do it, and you can prepare the foods in a way that's healthy without adding the things that cause a lot of problems for people with weight and with diabetes and those kind of things.
mm. So where do you get inspiration? excuse me, for your recipes, and how do you go about creating them, adding flavor? Like, where does this skill set come from? Do you have culinary background or a mom who knew how to cook? What was it?
I don't have a culinary background at all. It's just desire. Because I want to eat good food. I want the food to taste good. And a lot of people ask me, how do you come up with these recipes? And what I did early on, because again, it was very incremental for me. I didn't say, you know what, I want to be a vegan that eats no oil, no wheat, no refined sugar.
Mhm.
I just respond to what I learned. And so at first, I just wanted to eat healthier, and that meant more plants, more fruits, more vegetables. And I kind of slowly transitioned into vegan. And then I would read information about oil and how high calorie oil is. Offers very little nutrients and a lot of calories. And I was like, okay, well, how can I cook without oil though? So I would take recipes from people that I liked or things that I knew how to make and say, okay, what can I do to replace this oil? What can I do? They're using wheat, but how can I make? What kind of flour could I use? Sugar, how could I replace that sugar and still end up with the same type of flavor and taste? And so it was a lot of experimenting, and just a lot of trial and error. And over time, I just learned how to adjust. And here's the other thing: I would find some recipes that were wheat free, or they might be refined sugar free. They might not have oil, but it wouldn't be all of them. But I might go to one place and learn, oh, this is how you replace the oil. Oh, this is how you replace the wheat. And so I kind of put it together. The light bulb went off. And so over time, I just learned how to make food without those things in them that still taste great.
Mm. So maybe we can check each of these off. So what are some of the things that you've learned that work really well to replace oil, for example?
It depends on what you're doing. If you're baking and making desserts, I have a couple of videos on how to do that. For one thing, I use nut butters, right, to create moisture. So it might be cashew butter, it might be almond butter, it might be tahini, but that's one way. Applesauce is another way to create moisture in dishes that you would typically use oil for. So it really depends on the dish. Flax mixed with applesauce as well can replace eggs. So there are different ways depending on what you're doing to add moisture to dishes. Mhm.
I've definitely done the flax egg with water, but I've never thought about adding it to applesauce. Hmm.
Yeah,
Okay,
applesauce works for some things. Yeah,
that's
absolutely. And then the
phenomenal.
nut butters too, for sure. Definitely the
Wow.
nut butters. And then as
Okay.
far as the cooking part, because a lot of people think, well, then how am I going to stir fry my veggies if I don't use oil? But I
Mhm.
just use a little bit of water, and then the vegetables are going to exude more water, and so that kind of gives you the liquid base to keep things from sticking. And it's just a matter of cooking, and really, you retain more flavor. At least to my palate, you retain more flavor when you use water rather than oil.
Mm.
And then if you're baking, I line pans and cookware with parchment paper instead of putting oil in the bottom. And the parchment paper keeps things from sticking. So it just
Mhm.
depends on what you're making, but there are ways to substitute for the oil.
Absolutely. And I want to jump back to where you mentioned your palate. So can we talk a little bit about, did your palate, your taste buds change? Because that's one thing I definitely hear a lot of patients say, but
Absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely. And so I studied under. I don't. Have you heard of Dr. Furman?
Oh yeah. I used to work for Dr. Furman as one of his medical directors, but yeah, we can definitely get into that.
Oh wow,
Oh,
oh
oh yeah.
wow.
I got a long
Like
history.
Oh, he's my health hero. I mean, and Dr. Greger, Dr. Clapper,
Hmm.
R.D. Brenda Russell, Dr. Esselson, Dr.
Hmm.
Bernard, Dr.
All good
McDougall.
friends. Yeah.
Right. Well, okay. Well, great. And I've like studied all those guys. I've studied what they do, how they do it. I've read all their books.
Hmm.
But Dr. Furman in particular, along with Dr. Greger, are
Sure.
like my health heroes. And so it was studying under Dr. Furman
Mm.
that I realized, okay, he said, that if it'll be difficult at first making the transition to no oil and no wheat, and you'll go, this doesn't taste good. But if you give it time, your taste buds will recalibrate, and
Mm.
what you eat is what you'll start to like. And by omitting the oil and omitting the sugar and minimizing or omitting the salt, you start to taste the true flavors of the food. And when
Mm.
when he first said that, and I read that in his book, I was like, "Come on, are you kidding me? Like my taste buds are going to change, and I'm going to like a salad? I'm going to like salad? That's never going to happen." Um, but like everything else he said, he was spot on. And it takes time. I think he says it takes 6 months to a year to totally get to where you can embrace the new food. I don't know how long it took for me because again, it was very gradual. But absolutely, now I can
Mm.
tell you that I get just as much joy flavor-wise, I'd have eaten the foods that I eat now than eating the foods before.
Mm.
It's just night and day. So I love what I eat. I love the taste. Took a little time, but I definitely do.
Mm. I love that because I just interviewed Dr. David Spiegel. He's a professor from Stanford, and he is 40 years of learning about hypnosis. But we are speaking regarding mindfulness, and we spoke around food because, obviously a lot of my work is dealing with patients and helping them eat healthier. But it really was to that point. He goes, you can enjoy delicious food and not have to have as much, but it's this mindset of appreciation and looking at food differently. Yeah, but so it kind of goes with that over time you will change your identity and your habits. It's fascinating. Yes, cool. So then as far as, so we have the oil piece, and what about the sugar? So, a lot of people have a sweet tooth. My husband loves vegan ice cream, and if I cannot let him go to the store unattended because it comes home in these little pints. So I just bought him
Yeah.
like this Kim Campbell, who's Plant Pure. Anyway, Nelson Campbell's wife, she told me about this creamery. I'm looking at it right now. I haven't tried it yet, but it's called the Ninja Creamery, and it's supposed to make this delicious ice cream because the way it turns.
Yes.
Do you have one of
Yes.
those?
I don't, but I have something similar though. I have
So
something
tell us
similar.
about sugar and sweetness.
Sugar's an easy one though. Sugar's an easy one to replace in recipes. Of all the things I replace, I would say that that's the easiest.
Mm,
But my sugar source is dates.
mhm.
Um, and I kind of got that from Dr. Greger. I wanted to sweeten things, but I didn't want to use a refined sugar because of how detrimental it could be to your health. But dates are my go-to for pretty much
Mm.
everything. Whether it's a hot drink, I've got a sweet potato latte I just posted the other day,
Yes,
sweetened with dates. Yes, I got
yes.
cakes sweetened with dates, pies sweetened with dates. You do so anything. So dates
Mm,
are definitely my go-to. And I usually take them and make date paste. So I'll take them and add a little water and make a paste and then add that to things to sweeten it. Super easy. Tastes just as sweet as regular sugar, but without all the detrimental effects.
and
So
all
you
the
still have
lovely
the fiber and
fiber.
the
Yep,
yes, fiber,
exactly.
antioxidants. It's all there. Absolutely, absolutely.
And I love how you put on your recipes that you say, like, and if you are diabetic or something, you can use less dates. You just give a little description of being able to do that, which is great as well. So I'm curious also about, so we have the oil, which is huge, the sugar, and then what about salt or those type of flavors? What do you do for that type of, or do you leave some salt in? Like, where is your stance, or how do you add more saltiness to a flavor, to a dish if you need it?
I do use salt. I do use salt, and I really was being strategic because I'll occasionally get someone. For example, I had a person write me the other day, and I was making what was I making a chia pudding, and in
Mm,
that chia pudding I use organic cocoa powder, right?
mm,
And they said, why don't you just use the whole beans and grind those and blah blah. So they wanted to make it, just go to extreme, and
wow.
and that's okay. But I made the point to them, and this is about the salt, is that I've got the big picture in mind about how I want to present the food and how healthy I want it to be. But I have to relax it a little bit to draw people in. And I know the
100%.
people who follow my page are going to see this and go, wait, is he tricking us? But the thing is, if I started and I just post salads and I said no oil, no wheat, no refined sugar, no salt, no,
Hmm.
I just don't think it would be embraced the same. And
Right.
so some things I'll address a little later or start to ratchet down a bit. But right now, I definitely put salt in the recipes. It's still not, I don't overdo it by any
Hmm.
stretch.
Hmm.
And I usually say salt to your taste with
Hmm.
every recipe, but salt is something I still include.
Okay. And so as you started your ventures in the kitchen, what has been some of your most like surprising things that you've learned? Like, wow, and some of them the most challenging. Like, what are your wins and some of your challenges?
Oh boy, good question. That's a question I've never been asked. So you're saying some things that were surprisingly pleasant or easy, where I
Yeah,
said,
either
wow.
one, hard or yeah, you're like,
Mhm.
dang, that worked out. Fantastic.
You know what? I probably would say two things: the mushrooms and the dates. So
Mm,
a lot of people have trouble obviously giving up meat, right? But to me, meat is more about texture than it is about flavor, you know? And so what I've learned that really surprised me and pleasantly is that mushrooms can really kind of give that texture that and that mouthfeel that people are used to, right?
Hmm.
And so by learning, if you learn how to season it right and how to handle it right, you would think that you're eating those things that you grew up eating that maybe are so difficult to give up. So that was a very, very pleasant surprise. Just the
Hmm.
ability of mushrooms to mimic the texture of meat, because that really helps people. That really helps
Hmm.
people. And then the dates. Just I just never in my wildest dream thought, oh, I could sweeten something without sugar. I could just add this or add that, and it would actually be healthy, a healthy
Hmm.
choice. So I would say those are the two things: the dates and the mushrooms are the most pleasant
Awesome.
surprises.
And
Hmm.
what has been the most challenging thing to overcome?
Um, Most challenging thing. That's a tough one. Well, Well, I'll say this. So, a lot of people have allergies, and they're
Mm,
allergic to nuts. And I use a lot of nuts. If you're going to do vegan cooking and you're going to be baking and making sauces, cashews are kind of like the thing. Cashews or
mm,
tofu, and a lot of people are allergic to nuts, and a lot of people are a little off put by tofu. At least that's what I'm finding.
mm,
Um, and so, um, and so I would say just trying to make recipes because I listen. My whole thing is facilitating people. So when I really take it to heart, if someone writes me and they do and say, "Hey, can you make a nut free version of this?" Like I take it to heart, and I've been really working on recipes that are nut free. Sometimes it's not possible depending on what it is, but the biggest challenge is just trying to make something that can be enjoyed by everyone, which is very
mm.
difficult to do when you account for allergies and those kind of things.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. I think one of my favorite things that's an easy go-to is soy curls. Um, they're just fascinating. I love soy because it's so healthy for you and just phenomenal as far as like breast cancer reduction risk and osteoporosis and protein. It's a great tofu, tempeh, you name it. I'm a huge fan. But I'd like to kind of step back and go back to the mushrooms. Um, you know, Tell me a little bit about like how do you like what do you like? Is there certain flavors of mushrooms, like certain types of mushrooms? Because of course there's one of the G bombs or ferments,
That's
the
right. That's
mushrooms.
right.
And
Mhm.
so where like what's your favorite way to prepare them? What type of you like shiitake or the portobellas or like tell me a little bit about your mushrooms that you like to work with.
Yeah, well, I'm about variety when it comes to
Mm,
anything, whether it's fruit, vegetables, nuts, seeds. I like a variety because they all offer some of the things are the same, but they all offer something that's a little different. So I use probably about 8 or 9 different mushrooms. I found that if I'm trying to make a dish that traditionally would have been made with beef,
mm,
portobello are the better mushrooms because they're really kind of meaty and dense. So I use those for that. And then if I'm making something that traditionally would be used, like a chicken type dish, then either oyster mushrooms or the maitake mushrooms are my go-to for those.
mm.
Um, and then, if I'm just making some kind of a stir-fried vegetable or something like that, then I'll use anything. I'll use button, cremini, shiitake, you name it.
Mm,
Everything is fair game there.
mm, excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah, mushrooms are so good for you. Oh my goodness. Spend an hour
Yes.
just talking about the health benefits of mushrooms. And perfect. And so, many people, if I don't ask questions about your personal eating habits and what you like to eat on a day-to-day basis,
Right.
I will get emails. And so I
Right.
just try to remember to always ask. So, what are your favorite meals that you like to eat throughout the day? What are you eating?
Well, the only thing I don't like about that question, it's a good question, but I
Right.
always hope it doesn't come because I'm boring. I'm so boring, Lord, because the thing is, no, seriously, Monday through Friday, I eat the same thing. Like Monday through Friday, I eat the same thing. And it makes me sound so crazy and weird, like, man, that dude's wacko. So, So I'll tell you if you want to hear it,
Yes, I
it's
want to know, because if you don't,
okay.
I'm going to get in trouble.
Okay, well, so when I wake up each morning, I get up a couple hours early before I have to leave out, and I eat a mix of ground seeds. So chia seeds, broccoli seeds. It's always funny to say this. So chia seeds, broccoli seeds, flax seeds, sesame seeds. What am I? Walnuts, one Brazil nut for the selenium, tomato paste because it's so good for the prostate, a lot of lycopene, and then some amala, and what am I leaving out? Oh, and some black cumin powder. So that
Wow.
I take that mixture with the tomato paste and I mix it up. Now,
Okay.
obviously, I'm not eating this for taste. I'm not eating this because
I'm like, wow, those are some serious.
oh, and turmeric and black pepper, a little turmeric and a little black pepper to help absorb it. So,
Okay.
so I mix. I'm serious. I mix all that in a bowl. I have it pre-done. I make like 7 of them
Hmm.
every Sunday for the
Hmm.
week. And so I come down. I add my tomato paste. I mix it up, and I eat it. And I don't like
Wow.
it. I mean, I don't love it by any means. But I look at it like, some people get up and take multivitamins, or they get up and take medicine. I like to me that's like my multivitamin. Only
Hmm.
it's whole foods that I'm buying whole and I'm grinding them up myself and eating it. And so that covers a lot of things for me from the omega 3s, and I do take a supplement, omega supplement,
Hmm.
and I take B12 and I
Hmm.
take D3. So
Hmm.
so I take those three things
Those are the three
daily.
I recommend for patients daily.
There you
Absolutely.
go. So
Hmm.
so I take those three with my seed tomato paste mixture, and that's my breakfast literally 7 days a week. 7 days a
Okay.
week.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure
And
no one else
then,
on earth does that, but yes. Okay. I hear
well,
you.
Dr. Greger does something similar. I've heard him talk about his mix. It's a little different. He uses some wheat germ and some other things.
Uh-huh.
Um, but yeah, I mean, that's kind of that's my go-to. So seven
All
days a
right.
week, that's my breakfast.
Okay.
And then I'll come home later in the day, usually between 2 or 4 o'clock. I eat that at about 5 o'clock in the morning. So I like to put windows, long windows, allow my body to digest, detox, and cleanse. And then maybe around 4 or 5 o'clock in the evening, I'll come home and I have a big salad, and it's literally
Mm.
like 30 ingredients. I mean, red pepper, yellow pepper, green pepper, all kind of sprouts, radish sprouts, alfalfa sprouts, broccoli sprouts, you name it. And then about 4 different kind of onions: yellow onion, red onion, green onion, leeks, microgreens. I mean, this is a huge salad. It's in like a serving size bowl,
Wow.
and I eat that with a bowl of mushrooms. It'll have about 3 or 4 different types of mushrooms in it, and then either some quinoa with black beans, or
Mm.
some hummus.
Mm.
And that's my lunch, literally. And I do an avocado sauce over it. I mix avocado, lemon, and a couple of dates, and so that's my sauce.
Mm.
And then I put some pum fu on top. You ever heard of pum fu?
Oh, what is that?
A lot of people haven't heard of pum fu. I'm going to be making some and doing a video in a few weeks, but it's something that you can use instead of regular tofu with soybeans. It's made out of pumpkin seeds,
Oh,
but it looks like the texture, the look, it's just like tofu. Has a
wow.
ton of protein, as you know,
Hmm.
lots of zinc
I was going to
because
say
it's made out
zinc,
of,
pumpkin
yeah,
seeds.
pumpkin seeds. Yeah. So, but anyway, so I take some of that and I make it in some liquid aminos to give it a flavor, like kind of like a bacony flavor, and I
Okay.
put that over my salad. But that I eat that literally 5 days a week, and then for dessert, a couple hours later, I eat a bowl of about 6 or 7 different berries along with some pomegranate seeds and kiwi. So blueberries, blackberries, strawberries,
Mm.
kiwi, cherries, that kind of thing, and that's my dessert. But
Wow.
I literally do that every day. Every day.
So all these delicious dishes that you're making, you're not consuming those?
I do that on the weekend. So that's why I was saying Monday through
Oh,
Friday. Now,
gotcha.
now I eat the same breakfast every day, right? But then
Gotcha.
on the weekend, depending on what I made, if I just make, because I'll make about 2 or 3 videos in a day, right? So I'll
Oh,
make
I
about two or
see.
three videos, yes. And if it's even if I make a dessert, then that weekend I won't have the berries. I'll eat that dessert.
I
If
see.
I make a main dish, then I won't have the salad. I'll have that as a main dish. So that's how I handle that. Whatever I make over the weekend is what I eat. Mhm.
Awesome. Yeah, I have a smoothie every single morning. I make a big thing of Vitamix. I split it with myself and my husband, and it's the same stuff every single time. So,
Nice.
but yeah, but the amla powder and the turmeric. I'm just adding this all through my head. I'm like, I just might have
Hmm.
to just try it just to see what it tastes like. Because I love all of those things, but wow. Okay.
Yeah, I don't, I
um,
don't, I don't think you'll like the taste,
yeah,
but
yeah,
if I may, real quick, one thing I wanted to mention. Forget the question you asked me, but it had popped in my head, but I didn't get to say. I think you're asking me about how long it took for my taste buds
yeah,
to recalibrate.
yeah.
One part that I didn't mention about that, and this is in line with what we're talking about with mixing all these things that don't taste so good and ending up with this end result of something that doesn't taste that good. But there's a mental satisfaction that I get.
Mm,
I tell people all the time the foods that I ate before I started eating healthy, they tasted good and I loved them. The foods I eat now taste good and I love them. But there's a mental element now. It's something about knowing that I'm giving my body what it needs that is
mm,
so satisfying on a deeper level, though. I mean, seriously, that may sound
mm,
corny, but I'm telling
mm-mm,
you, it's something about knowing that what you're putting in, just looking at the kale and looking at the microgreens and having them in my hands and then eating them. Something about knowing, you know what, I'm taking care of myself.
mm,
It boosts your self-esteem because you're showing yourself that you care about you. You
mm,
follow me? Like
mm,
I'm doing this, and how could I not have high self-esteem? How could I not have confidence? How could I not be happy with myself when I'm treating myself this way? You know what
mm.
I mean? And
Yes.
so it's
Yes. So let's go back a second to the 90 pound heavier you. Do you feel like you
yes.
were disassociated with your body in the sense like you were just feeding whatever, like emotions versus like was there a connection? Do you feel like a mind body connection of like, wow, my body is me and that it's like because I know with patients, so I've been a doctor for 20 years, right? And so I'm when I sit back and I look at patients, it's almost like they react and they never think about the actions they're doing that are to their body. But when they start self-loving and they can see that, like for example, I may put a continuous glucose monitor on where they can see like what the blood sugars do on a like real time basis. So it makes me think, right, that you're speaking of self-love and loving your body as you, as part of you. Do you feel like there was a dissociation or maybe not? I don't know. That's where my brain goes.
Well, I mean, I think I was just oblivious to the whole concept, because and that's the. I mean, it's the sad reality is that I came up around family members and people in my neighborhood who ate the way I ate. So it was so
Mm-hmm.
it never dawned upon me there was a different way to eat. You hear,
Mm,
oh, eat your fruits and veggies. You hear that, but that's the extent of what I heard. I didn't know how to incorporate that. I didn't think about it. And so, like so many people, unfortunately, I never really thought, what am I doing to myself when I eat this
mm,
food? Until I had a medical issue. And then I was
mm,
like, whoa, okay, and you start to reevaluate, or at least that's what happened with me. And then in doing my research, and people were telling me, hey, no, what you eat can change your outcome. You know what I
mm,
mean? Like there are pathways that are activated when you eat cruciferous vegetables, and you get the sulforaphane, and the NRF2 processes activate. Just all the things. I'm like, whoa, really? Wait, what? So
mm,
so to answer your question directly, I had no concept of my body being a separate entity. It was just I'm
mm,
just me and I'm just eating.
mm,
But now I really understand.
that mind, body, and loving yourself and loving your body. I love that. That's really cool. The cool thing, though, I think is really fun is to see people's curiosity turned on by these type of things, right? So the change. So there's some like it reminds me of when we were little and everything is so new and exciting. And or as a parent, you see your kids, they're like for the first time they touch. I remember Jonathan, he helped set this up, right? I mean, he was like 11 months old and we got him to the beach and we touched sand and he was like, the eyes like,
Yeah.
what is this? Right. It's just that really fun curiosity. And a friend of mine is Dr. Jed Brewer. He does a lot of work on mindfulness and he speaks to curiosity as your superpower. So I feel like that's your superpower, right? You have this amazing curiosity for the foods and
Mm,
the knowledge and
hmm.
the science behind them that's really helped you make some amazing changes and now you're touching other people's lives. So that's really cool.
Absolutely. And it's just the way I'm wired. So it's no credit to me. It's just who I am. But but that certainly helped me
Mm,
to transition. Just that I'm a curious person and I like to learn.
mm,
And the more I learn, the more I want to learn.
mm,
And so when I dwelled into the science behind eating and the different approaches, my curiosity just blossomed and just grew,
mm.
and it's still there. I was telling the person in my comment section today, they were asking me, I forget the question. It was about a food, but at the end, I was telling them, I'm not sure on that. I was like, you know, the field of health and nutrition is massive, it's vast, and it's ever evolving. And what's cutting edge today may be outdated 5 or 10 years from now. The idea may change, and so I'm always going to be a student of nutrition and health, and I love it. I love it.
That's fantastic. I really like how you bring in the science of it and your own story and the food and making it taste good and taking Furman's work and kind of putting it in a new audience in a new way. I think that's fantastic. So what would you say the biggest lesson that you've learned in your journey is? Like when you reflect back over, the last few years, where do you feel like, wow, this was something that I had to go through this journey to learn? Like where do you find yourself kind of landing there?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I can't say that there's one specific thing, but it's just overall the power that food has.
Mm,
And again, on the way, when I first started, researching food and this kind of thing, I was learning different things. And then one day, excuse me, I was online and I came up on a word I hadn't heard, epigenetics, and I'm like,
mm,
epigenetics? What's epigenetics? And I started to, learn about it, and I read a few books, and I got really curious about it. I didn't realize that, I thought your genes were your genes, and what they are is what they are. And for some things like eye color, it is what it is. But there are other genes, and that the way they express is up to you. It's what do you give them? What's the environment? How do you feed them? That can determine, how those genes express. And then telomeres, that we have these
mm.
telomeres, and that certain things will lengthen them and certain things will shorten them, and then that's kind of indicative of your lifespan. So these things like really really drove home for me the power of food and nutrition. So just that right there is the thing that is just like, been the biggest surprise, is that wow, food is just powerful. Like you really can extend your health span and your lifespan solely by what you put in your body.
Absolutely. And that it's absolutely 100%. So speaking of that, I really like to ask guests, especially in this realm and what your work is where would you advise someone who's maybe curious and getting started? Maybe they stumbled across your Instagram, or maybe they come across this, on YouTube or the podcast. Where would you suggest someone get started? Like, because it's a bit overwhelming. I feel like they don't, we've lost the art of cooking. We've literally just sanctioned that to, the fast food joints and restaurants, and to our detriment. But what is some of the easy skills or easy places to get started?
Hmm. Um, well, okay. The answer to that is it, it is just so personal to who that person is and how they're wired. I mean, I found personally that there's not one approach that works, you
Mm,
know. It's kind of an individual thing. I tried to create my page so that no matter what you like to eat, I have something there that's similar to what you like. So if you like salads, I got all kind of salads. If you like hummus, I got all kind of hummus. But if you're someone trying to transition away from burgers and chicken and a lot of pies and cakes, I've got those things too,
mm,
but without the detrimental ingredients. So I would shepherd that person to my page and say, look, get in where you fit in. Look through these
I didn't really
recipes.
fit in. I love that.
Yeah, see what appeals to you. Think about what you eat now that you really enjoy, and then find that version on my page and learn how to make that. And learn how
Mm,
to make that. But I do want to say that the two things for me that are the most important, if you want to transition to better health, is the want to and the knowledge. You know, I always tell people if you got the want to, I got the know how. I can't supply both. I can't. You know, I can't cheer it on because if your motive for changing is external, well, what happens when that's removed? If you need a particular person to cheer you on, what happens when they're not cheering? You know, it has to be here. At least this is for me. It has to be here. But if you've got the want to, and then you get the knowledge, the possibilities are endless, you know. So that's I set my page up with that in mind. There's a lot of education there. I do talks on things like zinc and iron and you name it. I do talks on rice alternatives, etc. But then I show you how to make them too, you know. So I try to make it comprehensive. So I would encourage a person to go to my page or a page like mine, doesn't have to be my page, and start making things that are healthy.
Absolutely. Which reminds me, we didn't speak to rice. What do you do to replace rice? Like, what are some of your favorite things? So someone's like, the rice is a staple, or like, where do you feel like are good substitutes for rice?
Yeah, well, first of all, if someone says to me, "Look, I can't give up rice. Rice is a staple," I say, "Okay." I mean, I have a no pressure approach, and I don't have a mine is better than yours attitude. I had someone write me today. What did they say to me? Oh boy, here we go. But they said something. It might have been about rice actually, about they eat rice all the time, and I'm still a healthy vegan. And I said, yes, you are. That's fine. That's okay. You know, there's not one way to be a healthy vegan. But to answer your question directly, my go-tos are millet.
Okay.
Millet has a lot of resistant starch, so it resists digestion until it gets lower down the process, and so it feeds your good gut bacteria. Has a lot of calcium. In fact, I think has more calcium than any other grain. If not, it's very close. And so millet is one, and I love it. It tastes good. Quinoa is another one because it's so high in protein. And then cauliflower rice is the other thing that I use. So I would say those three. Quinoa is probably the one I use the most, but some of it is decided by what I'm making. It just depends on what I'm making. But those are my three favorite.
Absolutely fantastic. This is excellent. And so, yes, everything about what you're saying is absolutely true. And, stamp of approval for everything you're doing. I think it's fabulous from a doctor standpoint. So I would definitely refer patients to your direction. That would be no qualms about doing that at all. And so, yes, I know people are saying cookbook. I know you're working on all that. I don't want to pressure you, but we're all eagerly awaiting the deliciousness that you might put in a cookbook. And this is fabulous. So thank you for, your time and everything you're doing and putting your goodness out in the world.
Absolutely. And I do want to say to everyone, and I say this to people when they ask about the cookbook, in the meantime, the recipes are free. And that's another thing I do, because on other sites, people say, hey, look, I appreciate that your recipes are accessible. They're there. They're easy. They're detailed. On every video that I have, there's a little arrow underneath that says recipe tap here. You tap on that arrow, there's a recipe. So I'm happy about that part. I don't have the cookbook yet. It's going to be a while, but in the meantime, you still can make anything because it's all right there. Yeah.
Absolutely perfect. Well, thank you. And everyone, definitely check it out. It's Healthy Vegan Eating on Instagram and YouTube and TikTok.
TikTok as well, but Instagram has a lot more. Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Gotcha. Perfect. This is fantastic. So again, thank you for your time today.
Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed that video. Before you go though, please hit the subscribe and alert buttons so you don't miss out on any of the amazing content we're working so hard to provide you. We upload a new episode of Health and More with Dr. Lori Marbus every Friday. Now, if you'd rather listen to the podcast, you can find us on all the major platforms such as iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, and even Spotify. If you're looking for amazing resources to help you start and sustain a plant-based diet, exercise, recipes, or anything wellness, we got you covered there too. Because at Mora, we actually provide physician-led support groups to help people live happier, healthier lives free of metabolic disease. Don't forget to check out our website at mora.com, and thanks again for watching.